My question is about this legal issue and the fact that our hands are tied by the FCC. These laws were passed in 1996, 2012, and 2013. Our neighbor here referenced this study that was just completed by the government with a $25 million fund, by the government. And this was just completed in May. And it says that, that with the increased, if you're increasing the intensity of radiation, so does the increase of cancer. So I'm wondering whether or not this new study could give the county some grounds to object to the FCC. I also would like to point out that in that law, it's U.S. Code Title 47, Chapter 13, Section 1401, number 14. It defines the term existing public safety broadband spectrum as the portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that between the frequencies of 763 and 799 megahertz. So right now, the law that we say is tying our hands speaks only of the safety of up to, it defines the range, the spectrum range, up to 700, up to 800 megahertz. Now this, 5G, from what I read, Tom Wheeler, the chairman of the FCC, said that this would open up, the 5G would open up vast amounts of high-frequency spectrum, and that's from 28 to 100 gigahertz. So this is a quantum difference in spectrum, in radiation from what the current law, which is up to 800 megahertz, says. So is this a way that we can challenge the FCC by saying that the law itself only applies to spectrum up to 800 megahertz, and what we're asking for and what everybody here is asking for is to equip this for F5G, which will be radiation up to 28 to 100 gigahertz.
So thank you. So I think that taking in part the message that we have from here is that the law is what the law is, but we are not without our power to try to influence it. And as several people noted here, within the county, we have the benefit of being home to the National Institutes of Health and the FDA, which regulates devices, and about a third of the people in the FCC live in this county. So it is certainly possible for us to try to work with some of those agencies to convene a meeting to discuss some of the newer studies, the things that are out there. Now, whether that ultimately causes a change in the rules, we cannot predict, but it is certainly something that definitely coming from here, I think that it is a fair criticism to say that a lot of the data that the federal agencies cite publicly is old, and it is not looking at some of this new spectrum, and that's certainly something that we can work to do.
Thank you. You guys, we're out of time. We have to be out of the building at 9. We want to thank you all for coming and remind you that this meeting's going to be broadcast on County Cable Montgomery. It's going to be also available on demand on the council's website. There's a web page that's dedicated to small cell antennas for County Cable Montgomery. I'm Sonia Burke.